Welcome back to Continental Club, the show where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Doogie is on holiday once again this week, so I am back in the hot seat and I'm joined by Patrick van Straten and Christopher Hamill. And you've just come off your own little holiday, haven't you, Hamill?
I have, mate. Lovely and brown, feeling recharged, ready to get back into the football. I hope Doogie's taken a lot of SPF 50 for that slaphead of his, but I think he thoroughly deserves this holiday. So let's do him justice while he's away on Continental Club.
He does. He's been smashing it this week, and hope he'll be able to find somewhere in Croatia to watch the Europa League and Champions League finals, which we are looking at today. In particular, the Champions League final, because our lead question comes in from AFCGB. He has asked us to make our Champions League team of the tournament and name our player of the tournament. We're not going to do that because I believe we've got a 10 coming out on the weekend, basically running through the 10 best players in the Champions League this season, so you can get stuck into that when that comes out. But we are going to be focusing on one of the teams in the Champions League final, in particular PSG and Neymar as well, because obviously he has put in some eye-catching performances in this mini tournament to get them there. Obviously, we've been discussing a lot Barcelona's exit to Bayern Munich this week, so we thought we'd switch things up a little bit as well, because I feel like a lot of you guys at home are probably a little bit fatigued by that. For now, at least, I'm sure there'll be plenty more discussion about Barca in the coming weeks. But yeah, we have to talk about PSG. They finally ended their 25-year wait for a Champions League semi-final berth. Obviously coming through against Atalanta in kind of heroic last-minute fashion, didn't they? And now they've reached their first ever final. I think I was looking it up. Bayern Munich, who they face, I think won their first European Cup when PSG were about 4 years old. So they've had a lot of catching up to do. And obviously in the last 10 years, this has been their aim, and they finally got there. And we kind of want to just kind of go through how it really happened. Obviously, this has been a 2-year kind of project with Thomas Tuchel. Obviously, Neymar was signed 3 years ago. So it feels like, all this kind of hard work is finally paying off. But Hamill, let's focus on this season's Champions League. How has it panned out for PSG?
Yeah, I mean, this season has been the fruition of all that frivolous spending, hasn't it? And ethically, you can sort of disagree with that. We're not going to go too much into that today. But on the pitch, the results are clear to see. It's finally, the results are coming home to roost, aren't they? They've been very strong in the group stage in this campaign. They finished 5 points ahead of Real Madrid. That feels like aeons ago now, doesn't it? And they beat Real Madrid 3-0 at the Parc des Princes without Neymar, Mbappe and Cavani. There is strength and depth in this squad. And I think that was very evident against Leipzig, actually. I think they made 4 changes for that game, with Paredes coming in, who, of course, helped turn the game around against Atalanta, playing a starring role in that midfield. He was very impressive. But yeah, the lack of games since March hasn't cost them, has it? 2 finals, I think they've played, apart from that, have been short of regular football, which makes this all the more impressive. And in the games they've played since in the Champions League, they've dominated possession-wise. They had the lion's share of the opportunities against Leipzig, which was, bore out in the expected goals figures. They have spent, 4 times the money that Leipzig has since 15-16. So we were kind of expecting them to be dominant. But there was just some really good standout performances, and it wasn't necessarily just that forward line. Marquinhos, I thought, was a beast in midfield. 6 tackles and interceptions in that game. Neymar put on his customary dribbling show as well. And Di Maria, who has been outstanding in recent weeks, of course, missed 1 game, didn't he, through suspension. He created 5 opportunities against the Germans. And thanks to his recent exploits, he's actually now the 2nd most productive Argentinian in Champions League history in terms of goals and assists after Lionel Messi. And he kind of became the forgotten man for a while, didn't he? But Di Maria, a classy act and amazing longevity to his career. So hats off to him for his recent performances. 9 goal involvements in this season's edition, beating his tally of 8 when Real Madrid actually won it in 2014. And he was sort of star of the show, wasn't he? PSG, like you said, They've now scored in the last 34 Champions League games and are averaging 3.1 goals per game across all competitions. So they have been in very fine fettle. They've been building towards this. There were some sticky results in Tuchel's first campaign, wasn't there? That had people questioning as to whether he'd be the man to get them past that quarter-final stage. But yeah, they've come back really strong since the break. And I think we're now seeing the tactical blueprint that he probably wanted to, instill from day dot. It's taken a little while to win over his superstars and for the board to come out and publicly back him over some of their bigger names. But I sort of see a clearer philosophy forming now, and he's starting to make a big difference to that club, isn't he?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's very easy to look at what PSG have spent over the last few years and their superstars, and kind of come to the conclusion that it's inevitable that they were going to get to this point at some stage. But Tuchel, it's easy to forget that Tuchel is probably the most forward-thinking managerial hire they've made. In the kind of Qatari era. You look back at their previous managers, Ancelotti, who was seen as a safe pair of hands. You look at Laurent Blanc, who again, relatively inexperienced on the European stage at the time. And then who was before Tuchel? Unai Emery, who again was, in hindsight, a pretty uninspired appointment. Pat, what for you has Tuchel done which those other managers haven't?
Well, I think the real difference is that he's been given an opportunity to do something different. I completely agree that he's a different style of manager to the guys who came before him. But in his first season, it could easily have all gone wrong. He won the league by 16 points, but they lost the Coupe de France final against Rennes. They went out in the quarters of the Coupe de la Ligue against Guingamp. And then obviously there was that Champions League result against Man United. And yes, there was a significant amount of bad luck there, with that ridiculous penalty being given against them. But I think they lost more games in 2018-19 than they had done in any season since 2011-12, before they became this kind of unstoppable juggernaut at the top of French football. And we've seen clubs like this make snap judgments before and decide to just kind of go back to what they know. And Max Allegri was available last summer. That could have been something that they thought about. It was heavily rumoured at the time, as was a move for Mourinho. But they gave him a 1-year extension. And their transfer business, I think, has also become much more sensible than it used to be. They went out last summer. They got Abdou Diallo, who is a good long-term signing. Idrissa Gueye, I think they overpaid for him, but he's been very good. Sarabia, they paid his buyout. They brought in Keylor Navas, Ander Herrera on a free, Mauro Icardi on loan. And of those players, I think two of the players with the most minutes for them in Ligue 1 this season, beside Di Maria, were Navas and Gueye, so two new signings. So there no longer seems to be this kind of disjunction between the people who are going out and signing players and the manager who is forced to kind of try and fit them into a coherent 11. So I think that in that sense, it's not so much what Tuchel has done as the latitude he's been given at PSG, which is different. But I do think he's improved the side as well. Under Emery, I think they took about 5.5 shots a game more than their opponents. They had about 63% possession. Possession stayed about the same, but now they have closer to 7 shots a game more than their opponents, which is a pretty significant difference. So instead of being a plus 1.6 expected goals a game side, they're now a plus 2 expected goals a game side, which is ridiculous. On average, they're conceding 0.8 expected goals a game. On average, they're putting up 2.8 of their own. I mean, that is a recipe for unbelievable dominance and for deep runs in the Champions League, and so we've seen. So I think that really Tuchel has created a more versatile, a more unpredictable side, which finds value in some of these rotation players, some of these fringe players, where they previously didn't. And I think that actually, as we predicted at the beginning of the season, bringing in players like Gueye, like Herrera, gives them a lot more steel. It makes them a lot more difficult to beat in the centre of the park, whereas in the past they've been quite soft-centred. So yeah, I'm quite bullish about PSG, and to be honest, everyone was all season long. I think that they generally were considered to be among the 3 or 4 favourites for the Champions League, but now I think that this is a matchup which is actually pretty good for them. I'd still make Bayern favourites, but I think that PSG will have something to say in the final.
For sure, yeah, no, I agree. I think PSG are probably by far the strongest opposition they've come up against since the restart, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it's right, yeah, those signings last summer were pretty inspired. I think it was something that PSG probably needed to do for the last 5 years, and it definitely showed, obviously, in terms of their kind of XG stats and the expected goals against, but also it showed in terms of, I think they went from producing the least tackles or the third least tackles in Ligue 1 to producing the 9th most this season, which just goes to show how combative that midfield has become. Obviously, a player like Marquinhos in particular has really kind of settled into that new role, hasn't he, as the main DM. So yeah, but I mean, obviously we do need to speak about Neymar, Hamill.
Yeah.
In January, Tuchel, he was on quote saying that he's become the leader that we hoped for. Clearly, their relationship has, he's been able to forge a very good relationship with him in a way that, for example, Unai Emery really wasn't. How vital has Neymar been in this Champions League run?
Yeah, I mean, he's just been consistently good when he's played, and his talent is, of course, never been in doubt. I think people have forgotten how good he is to an extent. Some of the commentary about his ability, or the fact that they exacerbate his misses, is probably a little bit disrespectful of what he's achieved in Europe since arriving from Brazil, which is 175 goals in 270 appearances in Europe's top 5 leagues. And he's been directly involved in 59 goals in 59 UCL games. I mean, injuries have played a part in sort of PSG's maybe them bottoming out of, well, not bottoming out, them losing crucial ties in the Champions League knockout stages, because he missed those losses to Real Madrid, didn't he? And he missed the loss to Manchester United. So his absence clearly affected them. But this year, he's been absolutely incredible, and he's been involved in a goal in every knockout game he's played. So goals against Dortmund in both legs, assists against Atalanta and Leipzig. That back heel, that cushioned back heel for Di Maria against Leipzig was just a piece of genius. And I think that really shows that, well, for me, his natural ability is only surpassed by that of Messi. And under the hood, his numbers are absolutely fantastic, as you'd imagine, having just pointed towards those goal involvements. 6 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, almost 4 shots per 90, 3 opportunities created for his teammates, a ridiculous 7.1 dribbles. I think only Messi has completed more dribbles than him in the tournament this season. And there actually isn't that much difference between his stats in the Champions League for Barca and for PSG. Of course, he was available a lot more at Barcelona, which is kind of why people think he had his heyday there. But yeah, probably still for me, after Messi, Mbappe, yeah, the 3rd best player in the game at the moment. And I do think it was interesting against Leipzig. He didn't feel the need to drop off and to start playing and to finish moves himself, because he had Paredes making really progressive passes. Against Atalanta, it was interesting that, just going back to what Pat was saying about PSG having a soft centre, I think that still weighs heavily on Tuchel, because he played 3 really combative midfielders, didn't he? In there, I think it was Ander Herrera, was it Gay and Marquinhos? I might be mistaken on that, but by bringing Paredes in, they were able to generate a lot more play from deep, and Neymar was just taking up unbelievable positions. He was causing Campbell all sorts of headaches. Sabitzer literally didn't know whether to stay or to go to press Paredes, and that just created room for Mbappe. And yeah, there was some unbelievable sort of passing through the lines, which shows you that, PSG, they need input, sizable input from other players other than just Mbappe and Neymar. They're not going to carry them over the line against a Bayern side which are great throughout, that starting XI. But there's a sense of balance there. But they are a lot less potent, obviously, without Neymar, because there is a disconnect when he's not in the team between Mbappe and probably the rest of the team. them two sort of, think on the same wavelength, don't they? They're a fraction ahead of everyone else. So yeah, I do think he's going to have a big part to play in the final, and that's a fairly safe statement from me. But I do think if he wins the Champions League with PSG, given that Barcelona are in such a mess at the moment, all of a sudden we're going from, he left PSG to get out of Messi's shadow. It's not worked out for him. Stupid move, should have stayed as, part of that holy trident, the MSN. But then he gets a Champions League title to his name, and Messi doesn't have one, since 2015. So it kind of justifies his move. It maybe justifies the likes of Icardi's move as well. You've got all these players who have been accused of moving for the money, then winning Europe's top prize, and it kind of leaves the purists scratching their heads a little bit, I guess. Maybe in dismay, or maybe in silent admiration. I'm not quite sure what camp I'm in yet, but just a really fascinating time. I do think it's going to be a lot closer than people are making out as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it is interesting. If they do come away with it, it does suddenly change that dynamic, doesn't it? And I think we definitely need to give a moment's thought to Gianluigi Buffon, whose timing of his PSG move could not have been worse. Almost definitely won't get his hands on a UCL trophy now, will he? Unless Juve do something crazy next year. But yeah, I think you both summed it up pretty well there. And on the subject of Neymar, I think he is that kind of essential piece, isn't he, in that attack? I think as good as Di Maria has been, and I'm sure we'll.
Oh yeah, but unbelievably underrated. Underrated Di Maria, big time.
Yeah, just in terms of that forward line, I think just having Neymar on the pitch just gives Mbappe that space, doesn't it? I mean, they play together so well, and having to mark both of them is just a nightmare for defences, and that could be.
I mean, we saw how influential someone like Kimmich is when he's unable to go forward. Like, just having Neymar in between the defence and the midfield, it just means that Bayern's midfield aren't going to have total ownership of the game like they did against Lyon, when at various points their whole defensive line was just in the opposition's half.
Yeah, it's true. I think he clearly has, he adds something that other teams don't have in this season's competition. And it'll be interesting to see actually how Bayern set up, because obviously Pavard is back now. I think he played the last 10 minutes in the semi-final against Lyon. So will he take that right back position, and will Kimmich move into the midfield? Obviously Goretzka's very good there in the late stages of the season as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Hansi Flick does there. Because I expect, trying to keep Neymar out of the game as much as possible is probably number one on his list of priorities. We may as well go straight into our big match preview, because we're kind of already covering it.
Yeah.
We'll go on to the Europa League, which is on tonight in a second. We're not going to do a massive preview for that, because a lot of you will be watching this over the weekend, and the match will have already taken place. Before we do so, a quick reminder to subscribe to Eurofootball Daily if you haven't done so already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. I was looking up at it the other day, and I think half of you, or over half of you, are unsubscribed, so why not join the club? We put videos like this out every single day, so yeah, you really don't want to miss out. But yeah, let's I guess go on to Bayern Munich. In this Champions League final, they are favourites. Some would have them as heavy favourites. Pat, they've obviously had one of the great Champions League campaigns, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're going for their 6th Champions League, and they, I think, can go joint 3rd with Liverpool for most Champions League wins if they do get it. So that would be pretty impressive, and obviously they could be the first ever side to win the Champions League with a 100% record, which would be absolutely nuts. On the other hand, I don't think that they're unbeatable. I found it really strange that in the last couple of games, afterwards, the press, I looked at some of the press this morning from last night's game, and it was Bayern brushed Lyon aside. Lyon couldn't lay a glove on Bayern, and I think were we watching the same game for the first 20 minutes when Lyon were just carving them up on the flanks. Like, I do think they need to... I hope they'll play more conservatively on the flanks in the final, because they've just been so cavalier there. And as good as Kimmich is, like, Lyon were able to get behind him constantly. As amazing as Alphonso Davies is, the fact that he's a winger becomes apparent when teams are constantly just racing down his side because he's still at the other end of the pitch. So I think they're going to have to be careful, because PSG have got Neymar and Mbappe in those positions, and you can't take chances with those two players the way that you can take chances with Kyle Toko Akambi and a half-fit Memphis Depay. So I think they're going to need to be a little bit more careful there. I think that when you look at them having conceded 8 goals in 10 games, I would take that with a pinch of salt, because I think we both know that they should have conceded... I think we all know they should have conceded more goals than that in their last couple of fixtures alone. Like, I thought against Barcelona as well, as bad as Barcelona were, the first 20 minutes they got in behind pretty easily too. On the other hand, what Bayern do have is an unbelievable attack. They've scored 42 goals in 10 games in the Champions League. So, if they do end up giving up a couple of easy goals, you imagine that they've got the materials to get out of it. I mean, Robert Lewandowski, if he gets a brace in the final, he'll equal Cristiano Ronaldo's record for most goals in a Champions League campaign, which is 17, which, given that they've obviously had fewer games to do it, is pretty staggering. Serge Gnabry as well. I think he's getting a goal involvement every 63 minutes in the competition right now. Thiago's been very important. I thought had a very poor semi-final actually last night, but is still one of the outstanding midfield players in the world, and a poor game from Thiago is still better than a good game from the majority of midfielders. But he needs to not pass the ball directly to the opponent, especially when the opponent is Neymar. So I don't know. I think that Bayern, from my point of view, Bayern are favourites. Bayern's record makes that so, and probably their experience to some degree as well, and their depth. The fact they can bring Coutinho off the bench is hilarious. But I don't think that they're unbeatable. I don't think that they're like a perfect side with no weaknesses. And I think that if PSG manage to get a couple of chances like Lyon had, and they stick them away, Bayern will find themselves in trouble quite quickly. So if you're a Bayern fan, I think you'll want them to take a slightly different approach in this final to the ones they took in the semi and in the quarter. If you're a neutral, you probably want them to continue playing like absolute lunatics, because it's been super fun, and I think that this is a worthy final in the end. I think that these are two amazing, albeit flawed sides, and we could see, aside from Messi, I think you'd probably have to say that there are 4 or 5 of the best attackers in the world on show in this game. Lewandowski and Müller, those are 2 Ballon d'Or contenders. Mbappe, probably the second best player in the world. Neymar, his finishing's been appalling recently, but he's still, capable of doing things that almost nobody else in the world is. It should be a really, really, really enjoyable game.
Yeah, I think it's probably the match that everyone wanted for the final, right? Which is not necessarily what we could have said for Champions League finals, in seasons past. It should be a very entertaining game. Obviously, yeah, both teams have shown themselves to be, vulnerable defensively at points, and obviously, yeah, very, very entertaining attacks. We won't cover PSG at this point, because I feel like we've covered them quite extensively. Yeah. So I'll just go through a little bit of team news. I think basically Bayern are squeaky clean. Obviously Benjamin Pavard's back from injury. Whether he'll start or not is another question, but they go in with a fully fit squad. PSG obviously have a few more doubts, in particular Verratti, who did come on for the last 10 minutes against RB Leipzig. But remains a doubt, and obviously Navas, who was injured against Atalanta. So doubts to whether he'll start or Sergio Rico in goal. As for their head-to-heads, they've only met twice in the last 17 years, or in the last 20 years, I mean. I think it was back in the 2017-18 group stage in the Champions League. I think they were pretty much even then. PSG won 3-0 at the Parc des Princes. Bayern won 3-1 at the Allianz. I think in total, PSG just about edge it with their meetings in European competition, going back to the late 80s. So yeah, not really much to go on from there. But boys, If you're calling it now, what do you reckon the scoreline's going to be?
Oh, woof. Okay, I'm going to go out on limb, and I'm going to say 3-2 to PSG.
Wow. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe Boateng will get caught out by Mbappe. Yeah, I mean, like Pat said, I don't think they're totally infallible. And while I, don't really champion state-run clubs, for some reason, I would like to see, PSG win. Maybe it's because they've never won it before, right? And this season's Champions League has been great in the fact that it's broken up the hegemony like somewhat between like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Chelsea, Manchester United, although that was a long time ago now, wasn't it? So yeah, I'm gonna go Neymar to solidify his legacy and Mbappe to announce himself as the power player in Europe. PSG 3-2.
Well, Pat?
I feel like Chris has kind of stolen my prediction there. I was actually leaning in that direction too, but it was one of those things where I was like, I feel 3-2, but could be to either side. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking that
maybe
as well.
Maybe I'll go the same, but I could see it being like a high scoring draw, like I could
what penalties?
Yeah, I could see like a 2-2, 3-3 type thing. But I actually kind of want to back PSG in this game as well. I do think Bayern are better. I agree. I do think they are like the favourites, but I don't think by as much as people think. I think if you were betting on this game, there's probably some value in betting on PSG here. But yeah, I'm going to go PSG as well to come out winners. Yeah, let's just say after a high scoring draw in pens. I don't care.
Sergio Rico, the hero.
No, not Sergio Rico. I think Ivan Perisic blazes over the bar. And I think that if you're an Inter fan, right, do you not feel like you have to win the Europa League and you really hope that Icardi or Perisic has a terrible game in the final? Because one way or another, one of your loanees is winning the Champions League this season while you're in the Europa.
Well, at least Icardi's been made permanent, so they can probably rest more at ease with that. But yeah, Perisic certainly. Do we think is Keylor Navas not going to be back?
I'm not sure. I just saw that he's a doubt,
right.
So he may well be back.
Because that could be huge.
But I think they're being a bit cautious.
I think Verratti is the key one to me. Like, I mean, like, I kind of wonder if they maybe just want to play Pavard on the right and bring Kimmich into midfield for Bayern because their wings haven't been so strong. They haven't been so strong defensively. But I mean, if Verratti's in there for PSG, that does make a big difference. Having that guy who's not. I don't want to do them down because I rate Herrera and I really like Paredes. Like I liked him at Roma, and I think we all like Idrissa Gueye, but none of them is the player that Verratti is. Right, he is their Thiago. So if they have him, things get really interesting. They're actually quite similar sides in some ways.
Yeah, it was quite interesting that Tuchel didn't make any substitutions until about the 85th minute against who did they beat? God, I'm having a total brain fart now. Against Leipzig. And I think Nagelsmann had made 5 substitutions by the time that Tuchel even looked to his bench, which would suggest to me that he's going to keep that same team for the final with Paredes in. And Paredes, I mean, it's Verratti is the key player, I agree, but the emergence of him in the latter stages of his tournament might soften that blow somewhat. The shift from Kimmich from right back to central midfield is the most interesting one for me. Do you think Goretzka would be the one that gets the chop there? If Pavard
You'd
comes
think,
in.
wouldn't you? You'd think that. That's kind of how they've set up most of the season until Pavard's injury. So you would expect that. But again, having Kimmich at right back has generally worked for them. But
he's just a midfielder.
I agree.
He doesn't.
But until this Champions League mini tournament, it was very much. Yeah. It was very Bayern's season had kind of been very much centered around Kimmich in midfield. So yeah, I think if I was Tuchel, I would take the gamble on Pavard. I think.
Yeah, because especially you think about Lyon last night. Like Lyon weren't really playing with width. Like they're playing with the 2 up front, so like it's not particularly wide. And as a result, Kimmich can kind of like come inside and play as a midfielder. Whereas whoever's playing right back against PSG is gonna have to play as a right back. So if you put if you put Kimmich there, you are going to lose something in midfield. So if Pavard's fit, I think you probably have to go for it. Like just because you maybe need somebody who you don't want to lose Kimmich's passing in midfield, because he's basically stationed at right back, just trying to keep hold of Mbappe. Plus, Pavard presumably knows Mbappe reasonably well. Like, they'll have played together for the national team, played against each other in training. That might be quite interesting.
True, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Mbappe's going to give Boateng nightmares.
Do you not think, like, last night I was just like, all I want to see is Davis and Mbappe, like, both sprinting after a loose ball. I want to see who's faster.
That would be mad.
Wouldn't that be exciting? I'd swap half of the game. I'd swap the first half for just a 100-meter sprint between Mbappe and Alphonso Davies. I really want to see that. That'd be amazing.
I think I'll pull my hamstring just fucking watching that.
For sure. I'm going to go in with my prediction now. I'm going to actually say a Bayern victory, but I was actually thinking along the 3-2 lines. I hope we're not jinxing it, because this does have the makings of a really high-scoring final, doesn't it? Just the quality in those forward lines is just frightening.
And that should be cherished, because like you've said, like they're generally quite cagey affairs.
Yeah.
And
I mean, especially last season.
Yeah, I mean, it's the case more often than not, and people seem to forget because they get caught up in the build-up and whatnot. But this is genuinely such a tasty final.
Yeah, I mean, probably the two best teams in Europe at the moment. Actually, maybe being a little bit unfair on City and Liverpool, but yeah, certainly Bayern. I think. I don't know. I think they're for me the best team of the last 2 or 3 years. But let's. I think we've done the Champions League final justice. Obviously, let us know your predictions in the comments below, and what your thoughts on Neymar as well. How big a match is this for him and his standing in world football and his legacy? Let's have a quick look at the Europa League final. Inter Milan Sevilla. I mean, for me, I think Inter are the clear favourites here. They've had a pretty excellent season under Antonio Conte. Obviously only missed out on the Serie A title by a point in the end. Obviously it had been won a little bit in advance, but a very strong showing from them, and obviously a very strong showing from them in the Europa League as well. Lukaku's been on excellent form, hasn't he? What do you boys make of this? What would you say your prediction is for this final?
Inter Milan. I mean, they've been completely dispatched Shakhtar, didn't they? 5-0. That was quite surprising. I thought it was going to be a lot closer. Lukaku has been in unbelievable form for them and scored in every game he's played in the Europa League. Right, one of those kind of anomalous, weird, cool stats. But yeah, I don't have too much to say other than I think Sevilla are probably underestimated somewhat. They've made really solid progress under Lopetegui. Even Banega, this is kind of his swan song, isn't it? So let's hope he kind of goes out on a high. Led to believe he might be leaving Sevilla, right? And they've both had pretty competitive routes to the final. More so Sevilla. I mean, Cluj, Wolves, Manchester United, much more competitive than Ludogorets. Getafe, again, another side that are underestimated. Leverkusen, of course, very good going forward. And Shakhtar always seem to be, don't they? Always seem to be at the latter stages of the Europa League. So one of those teams that can't quite make the step up to the Champions League, but dominate in the Europa League. So I think it's probably going to be close, but I just think, there's perhaps a talent deficit between Sevilla and Inter Milan, and I think that's probably going to show. They're a Champions League side, aren't they? Really?
Yeah. So what would you say for your scoreline, Hannah?
Probably 3-1 to Inter. But my analysis not particularly great in this game, to be honest. Like my understanding of it.
Yeah, that's totally fair enough. Pat, what would you say in this game?
I think I'd probably go 2-0 Inter. I completely agree with Chris. I mean, Inter can bring like Alexis Sanchez off the bench, while Sevilla have got to bring on, say, Munir or something. Like I just don't. I think it is a bit of a mismatch there, but I think it'll probably be fairly cagey. I can imagine it being 2-0, but the second goal comes quite late.
Alexis to score with his shin.
Yeah, why not?
Nice, love that dramatic stuff. I kind of agree, to be honest. Obviously, Sevilla have great pedigree in this tournament, don't they? This would be their 6th title if they won it. Obviously, they had that 3 in a row between 2014 and 2016, and that was the last time they won it. Against God, that was Unai Emery against Jurgen Klopp. Kind of strange to think how far kind of the direction their careers have gone since then. Yeah, I can't. I'd like to go different from you boys just to be interesting, but I can't see it being anything other than an Inter win. So if Sevilla do pull this off, then we're all going to look like idiots. I'll see 2-0 Inter. But yeah, let's go on to our quick fire questions, which I haven't really looked at yet. So let me just have a quick.
I'm going to make
look and see which one's going to be the best.
I'm going to make it slightly easier for you. Don't ask about Barcelona here because we've spoke about them on every other show. Who is the greatest team of the last 10 years? Definitely doesn't qualify as a quick-fire question, Swagato Saka.
No. I do like that, though.
Yeah, come on. That's a bit more extensive than just saying a team's name, isn't it? I'll leave you to pick.
I mean, we can do.
You're the host.
No, I feel like we're contradicting each other here. We've already done our predictions for the UCL finals. That was from Clearly Claro. Thanks for that. I think let's just do it. Swagato Sarkar, give him what he wants. Greatest team. What? Well, let's just keep it one word answer. Okay. I mean, we might say the wrong team because it does usually require a bit of thinking, but not necessarily the greatest team, but maybe your favourite team of the last 10 years.
Oh, that's I like that angle more so. Pat, have you got any thoughts? You've got very good recall for like individual sides, individual years.
Well, I mean, the way I interpret this is favourite in a way because you can't really compare some of these teams. Like they just played in different years. I mean, I guess a lot of people would say 2011 Barcelona, 2017-18 Man City, 2014-15 Barcelona, 2012-13 Bayern Munich. I'd probably say I really enjoyed Ancelotti's first Real Madrid side, 2013-14, the one that won La Decima. That team was super fun. It was Carvajal. I think it was Carvajal. Was it still Pepe and Ramos, or maybe it was Varane and Ramos? Then it was Marcelo on the left, a midfield three of Alonso, Modric, and Di Maria, and then Benzema, Bale, and Ronaldo up front. And they played at such an insane speed all season. They were just really, really exciting, really enjoyable to watch. They were genuinely great. And I don't know, kind of they and I think the treble winning Bayern side are much more my taste than most of the Barcelona teams we've seen. I find them not as enjoyable to watch for whatever reason. I can't quite put my finger on it. There are probably loads of others I'm missing in there, like super fun teams to watch. Like this Atalanta side is pretty entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What about you, Hamill?
I mean, you're kind of thinking of teams that have like big clubs, right? I wasn't even thinking about Atalanta then, but Gasperini's Atalanta, even from the days, the first appearing on my radar when they battered Koeman's Everton in Bergamo. I think it was like 4 or 5-0, right? And I just thought, my God, who are these guys? I'm not even sure if Gasperini was there at the time. No, I think he was.
I think he might have just come in.
Yeah. Out of the bigger sides, obviously, I quite liked Luis Enrique's Barcelona because it was a departure. He was brave enough to depart from their usual style. Obviously, it kind of caught up with him in the end, as it does most Barcelona managers. And they kind of played with on the counter more so, didn't they? Which I found really interesting. And they kind of let teams come onto them, pressure them, invited them into their own half, and then just used MSN to absolutely annihilate them on the counter. So it was that was fascinating, a fascinating transition under Luis Enrique. A couple of the Juventus sides have been enjoyable to watch. They've kind of moved on from that now. They've gone from being like pragmatic, from it being all about the team, being well structured and well balanced throughout, to kind of signing superstars and giving Ronaldo a bunch of money each year and sacrificing other various players to kind of accommodate him in the team. I mean, Man City Centurions. I think Man City have played the best football for me in that period. Let's go with that.
Yeah, for sure. I think City's was definitely maybe the most complete team potentially, although they didn't get their hands on a Champions League or haven't yet. So I guess that marks them down a little bit. I guess there's not actually that much choice because most of the top 5 leagues have been so dominated by one or two teams, haven't they, over the last 10 years? But yeah, I think Barcelona under Enrique and Guardiola. I think for me it is hard to look past 10-11 Barcelona just because that was them at their peak, really, wasn't it? I think shout out probably has to go to Atletico Madrid 13-14 as well. Obviously won La Liga when, at a time where it really didn't look possible for any side other than Real Madrid and Barcelona. They were still operating at such a high level then. Obviously lost to Real Madrid in that final as well. Obviously not the most entertaining team to watch, but defensively just the best in the world at the time and have continued to be one of the best in the world ever since then. So yeah, shout out to Diego Simeone. But yeah, that's all we have time for on Continental Club for this week. Thanks for joining me, boys. Hamill, is there anywhere they should go next?
Yes, go and watch We Need to Talk over on Football Daily if you haven't done so already. We had a Barcelona podcast come out on FD Podcasts on Tuesday or Wednesday, about Koeman and what's going wrong, right, Pat? And I think that probably covers our bases.
Yeah, Patrick?
Just sub to the pod as usual. Football Daily Podcast and whichever podcast app you use, Extra Time on there.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you later.